of building capacity for workforce and transformation and digital readiness initiative. This is the part of AI Opportunity Fund, Asia Pacific. It is supported by Asian Development Bank and Google. So before getting started, just to give you a few housekeeping points, please mute your microphones during this session to avoid background noises. And you are welcome to write down your comments and queries in the chat box. We have a dedicated Q&A session in the last 20 minutes. And this session will be recorded for the learning and quality purposes. So as you know, in this course, we will be having 3 live sessions, and today is our first live session. And it is about prompt like a pro, real world use cases. So whether you are just starting using ChatGPT, or if you are already using AI in your daily life, this session will help you understand how you can better structure your prompts, how you can avoid common mistakes when using AI tools, and how you can use ChatGPT basically more effectively for your professional and academic tasks. So the idea is not to use AI. We all are already using AI in some aspects, but the idea is to use AI more intelligently. And for that, we are pleased to have Dr. Zafi Sharahan Sayed with us. Dr. Zafi is an AI expert and has strong background in computer science and artificial intelligence. He holds PhD from Cardiff University, UK, with an extensive experience in artificial intelligence and machine learning and how to apply these things in the real world use cases, especially in the field of education, transformation. And we are honored to have you, sir. So Dr. Zafi will now guide us through the main session for approximately 40 minutes. And I would suggest you write down your questions as we move along this session. Uh, and we will return back to these questions in our Q&A segment. So over to you, Dr. Zafi.
Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you are. So I'll share my screen so that we can start in earnest. Right. So hello, everyone. Like I said, I am Dr. Zafi Sayed. I am a computer scientist. And in this session, I'll talk about artificial intelligence and how to use it. Now, this session is part of the AI Capacity Building Initiative focused on workforce transformation and digital readiness. The goal is to help students and professionals understand AI in a practical and usable way. So we won't be going into technical jargon. The focus will be on how to use it hands-on and in a more practical approach without going through the technical details of AI. So in many ways, today's focus is simple: how to work effectively with AI, especially through the use of prompting. Now, this program is designed whilst keeping 3 cohorts in mind. So 3 different groups. The first one is students. The second one is healthcare professionals. And the third one is the education workforce. Each group uses AI differently in their daily work. So the training has to be tailored rather than a one-size-fits-all setting. What stays common across all the tracks is learning how to use AI responsibly as well as effectively. Now, across the 3 cohorts, you'll see that there would be 3 modules. We start by making AI simple for everyone, regardless of their background. So individuals from computer science may already know AI at a much more granular level than someone who is from social science. But we'll try to make it so that everyone learns in an equitable way. Then we'll move into using AI as a work assistant. And that is something that we do want to focus on, that at the end of the day, AI is our work assistant. Then we'll talk about how we can get better results from the AI through the use of improved prompting. And that would be the focus of today's session as well. An important aspect is to use AI responsibly. Uh, just as our assistant, we cannot always trust everything that the AI outputs. And finally, you learn how to stay competitive in AI, especially when there are new developments every month. Should we jump from one model to another every month when it is announced? Or if it should be in a slightly different way? Should we focus on a particular thing? So let's talk about what AI is in very simple terms. And here's one of the ways to think about it. AI looks at data, it finds patterns, and then produces an output. That could be a prediction, could be a suggestion, or it could be generated content. The important thing to remember here is that AI is not human thinking. We would like it to be, but we're not really there yet. It doesn't understand things the way we as humans do. It only recognizes patterns and acts on its own understanding of the world. So just as we have our own understanding of the world, when AI learns from data, depending on the type of data that it has learned from, it will have its own understanding of the world. And what is important to understand is that it may or may not align with our understanding or with our values. So we have to use AI in a more cautious manner. Now, AI is different from traditional automation. Traditional automation would follow fixed rules. If this happens, do that. Uh, and on the basis of that, we get some outcome. But the thing is, with traditional automation, the outcome is always the same. So if certain rules are followed, that would lead to a certain outcome. AI is different because it learns from data and adapts its output on the basis of patterns. It is more flexible. Uh, let's say a new event comes and rules have not been developed for it, then traditional automation may not work, and we may have to develop new rules. AI, on the other hand, can learn from the data, it can understand what the patterns are, and on the basis of patterns, it can have adaptive output. So, in many ways, AI is useful because it can work in scenarios where rules haven't been developed yet by establishing new data driven rules. There are two fundamental types of AI, especially in the age that we live in. The first one is predictive AI, where we want data to make decisions or classifications. Some of these examples are those that we see in our everyday life already. Example, email spam classification. Uh, Emails that are spam are directly sent to the spam folder. Sometimes we may receive emails that are spam uh, in our inbox, but that's how AI is. It is an assistant. Some other examples of predictive AI are recommendations that we see on YouTube or a Google search.
Dr. Zafi, sorry to interrupt you. Can you just hide this video box from the screen?
Yep.
Thank you.
All right, thanks. I think I'll hide this one as well. Right. So generative AI goes a step further by creating new content, such as text, images, music, and even videos these days. At the end of the day, it is still based on the patterns that we see in the training data, but it's very useful. Uh, and all of us use generative AI for one or another purpose these days. In fact, these days you would see a combination of predictive AI and generative AI. For example, if you have AI support enabled on your Google search, so rather than just showing you URLs to search items, Google would actually explain the thing that you actually are asking for. So in many ways, we are at a place where we have a combination of predictive AI with generative AI to make life easier for us. A helpful way to think about AI is like an autocomplete on your phone while you're typing text messages. The object there is that it assists us in typing that task so that we can spend less time doing that task. So we start typing, the AI suggests what might come next based on the patterns that it has seen before in our previous conversations. It feels smart and helpful, but it's still just predicting the next likely words. Still useful for us, though. Now, we would like you to think of AI as a helper, not a decision maker. It can help with drafting, summarizing, and organizing information, but it should not replace your judgment. It is important to remember that the final responsibility always stays with the end user. So trust your assistant as per the task at hand. If it's a very simple task, uh, write a birthday message, the AI is not going to go wrong. But if you're asking it something related to healthcare, a diagnosis, for example, it's probably not a good idea to trust what the AI says. And this is really important in smart use of AI. AI fits in very well within everyday work. It is especially helpful for writing, for planning, for organizing information, and supporting decisions by laying out various options. Some of these options we may think about based on our domain knowledge, but AI can help us think out of the box. It's also a strong learning aid, especially for students, that helps explain topics or summarizing material rather quickly. Uh, this diagram shows a very basic way that AI can be used in practice. We provide AI some input, it produces a draft, and then it's really useful for a human being to review it. In some cases, it may be mandatory. The review step is mandatory because it helps keep quality, accuracy, and responsibility in place. It is also useful to remind ourselves that AI can make mistakes while appearing confident. That's how it has been trained to behave. Here's a short list of common AI tools, some of which you may already recognize. Different tools are good at different tasks. Although some tools may do all of the tasks, they may not be the best at doing those tasks. So some tools may help us with chatting, drafting. Basic examples are ChatGPT and Gemini. Some other tools may be very good with documents. Uh, some may be good at graphics. So there are a variety of tools that are available, and just like every tool, we need to recognize where to use which tool. Every tool has its strength. It is also important to recognize is to use the tools as per the policy of the institution where we work or study. So chat assistants are mainly used to create first drafts, rewrite content, explain ideas, or summarize long information. The most popular ones, like I said, are ChatGPT and Gemini, but there are others as well, like Claude from Anthropic, DeepSeek, Mistral, and so on. These chat assistants are very flexible and can be very useful for brainstorming and problem solving. So the idea is that underneath the chat assistants, there may be other tools that are called as well. So for example, you can use ChatGPT to explain you a topic. You can also ask ChatGPT to explain you a document, because then it would just call a tool that loads in the PDF and learns how to discern it. Similarly, ChatGPT can call a model that generates images. So it's like chat assistants are the general purpose AI that most people would need to interact with. Now, often what we feel is that AI is unreliable because the results can be hit and miss. Now, most of the time, it's not really the fault of the AI, even if we may think that the tools are broken. But this is usually because of the instructions that we are providing to the AI. Instructions to the AI are called as prompts. And that's what we'll be focusing on for the rest of this session. How to how to provide good instructions to the AI so that it can provide us good output. When we don't provide clear instructions, AI will just fill in the gaps. And that's kind of where the problem actually starts. So, so prompting is simply how we give instructions to the AI. Good prompts help control the tone, the style, the format, and they reduce misleading or unsafe outputs. Now, in many ways, there are guardrails embedded in the popular chat assistants. So, for example, if we ask something from the AI that it deems could be harmful to users, it would just say so. But it's always a good idea to provide full instructions to the AI. So in many ways, instead of blaming the tool, prompting puts the focus back on how we communicate with our needs, what we desire. And if you think about it, it isn't much different from how good communication skills help people understand what we want them to do. The same holds true for human AI communication. So AI doesn't actually know our intentions a priori. It doesn't know what our audience is. If you're asking it to design something, write something up, maybe a brochure for an event, it wouldn't directly know what our audience is. It also would not know our requirements. So what it does is to predict the next likely words based on pattern. That's fundamentally how AI works. And if you do not provide it enough context, it will start to guess based on its training data. And that is where it may deviate from our requirements. So there are 5 ingredients that can make prompts more reliable. That is the goal. The first one. The second one is the context. What is our goal and what context are we working with? The third one is the audience. What is our audience? If we wanted to, for example, prepare a brochure, we need to inform it what the audience is. Is it a formal audience? Is it an informal audience? We also need to provide the constraints that we are working with. We're always working with constraints, and it's always useful to inform the AI what our limitations are, and also how we would like these output to be structured. Now, it's important to recognize that we don't need to have all 5 ingredients in every prompt at the same time. It's always a good idea to start simple, perhaps with 1 or 2 of these ingredients, and see if that suffices our purpose. Otherwise, we can just provide it more information. And as you'll see, there's a structured way to doing so. I'll talk a bit about these shortly. So it is important to be clear about what our goal is and what we desire from the AI. And I'll try to frame some of these examples from student context. I mean, we've all been students at one point, so we will be relating with these examples, regardless of what your background is at this point in time. So a vague request like write something about exam preparation is a very blurry target. It's non-specific, and obviously the output would not be, it's highly unlikely to be something that we desire. A clearer goal gives AI direction and immediately will improve the quality of response. So in this case, if we say, write 3 practical study tips for students preparing for a midterm exam would be very useful. But of course, this is not the complete context. There has to be more. Now let's talk about context. Here we can see how adding context can improve the output. Without context, AI doesn't know, in this example, who the summary is for or how detailed it should be. It would just work on what its understanding is. A small detail like specifying the audience or word limit would help the AI provide output that is more useful for us. So in this example, we're saying summarize these lecture notes in the context of first year students, and we also specify how many words do we want. AI would just figure out how it needs to describe it. Another ingredient that should be in the prompt is information about the audience. So for example, if we want the AI to explain what machine learning is, now for the benefit of those not from a computer science background, AI is a generic term. Machine learning is a more specific term for a technology used within the AI, and there are a variety of technologies. But let's say we want to explain machine learning to a first year student. We would like the language to be simple. So we have to specify the audience for the AI, because without it, it doesn't know what the content should be and what should be the type of content that is provided as its output. You can also go ahead and mention, is it a first year student in computer science? Is it a first year student of arts? So those things need to be mentioned. Another important part is constraints. So AI is going to provide the output, but what we need to look at is what should be the length, what should be the tone, how the output should be. Should it be bullet points? Should it be heading? Should it be paragraphs? Often what we want the AI to do is to avoid jargon. Often this doesn't really have useful information, but AI tends to provide it anyway. If you'd like AI to provide examples, then we need to let it know that please provide some examples. If we want to generate content that needs to be read, then we need to specify if it should be 2 or 3 minutes. Now, AI doesn't really know or have perception of time, but based on its training data, it's reasonably accurate if you specify how much reading time it should be. If you'd like examples to be practical, then please make sure that you provided instructions that say that provide practical examples or how it could be used or applied practically. And in a variety of things, you can provide it other factors as well. So for example, what should be the vocabulary level? If you're working with people who are non-native speakers of English, for example, we would not like to use in fact, we'd like to use simple language. If we are working in a particular geographic location, it is always useful to provide examples from that geographic location. If there are some things that we want AI to include in its examples, then we should let it know. Similar case for exclusions as well. The final ingredient is the structure. How do you want the output to be? When we don't ask AI for a particular structure, the output may be a loose list. More often than not, it would just be bullet points, like cascaded bullet points that it provides. And this may or may not be very useful for us. Because the thing is, AI is going to provide you lots of text. After some time, you may not want to read the text, read all of it, and you'll start to ignore it. So it's always useful to receive output that is based on what we think would be most useful for us. So in this example, we ask AI to provide us output that is tabular in nature. So rather than going through paragraphs or cascaded bullet points, maybe I learn better if the output is in the form of tables. So one way to go for it is to have no structure or minimal structure and say that list common mistakes students make when studying. Another way to go for it is to say, write a table with 3 columns. These could be risk, impact, and mitigation. And perhaps we also want to include some common study-related risks. So I'm providing it structure of how I would like the output to be, because perhaps this is how I learn the most from the output of AI. Here's an illustration of a weak versus an improved prompt. The weak prompt is short, it is unclear, it doesn't have a target, it doesn't have constraints. So the AI has to guess what the user needs. Now, these days, for example, ChatGPT and Gemini are smart. If you've been talking with ChatGPT, for example, it is recording your previous conversations, so it can extract some context of what you've been talking about. But let's say you've been talking about one thing, and now you need to talk about something that's totally different and independent of what you were talking before, this can occur. The improved prompt clearly explains in this example, it clearly explains the task, it includes details, and it sets limits, which will lead to better results. Now, when you take the course, there would be several examples that are provided where you can practice these things so that you can see these yourself. Now, good AI outputs often don't happen on the first try. And this is something that you may have seen yourself. Iteration, which is refining, shortening, or improving the response, is a normal part of process. In fact, good AI responses are not just one-off. It's like we need to squeeze out from the AI what we desire by providing it refinement instructions as well. And this is how you can catch issues like tone, like clarity, like accuracy. And it is also useful to remember that we need to guide AI towards the type and quality of output that we desire. So let it be known that if we are using AI, especially as chat assistant, we probably need to provide it further instructions before we get the final output that would be closer to what we actually desire. One powerful technique that is often useful is to ask AI to ask you questions. So this helps in clarifying your own thinking, because often what we do is to just type into a chat assistant what we want without actually thinking about it in detail ourselves. So we can just ask the chat assistant that ask me 3 questions before you start so that you fully understand what I need. So in that way, we are asking it to probe us. And therefore, we are not only helping the chat assistant, but it also provides us an opportunity to think a bit more about what we want. Generally, this leads to improved results. Even if it is a bit more time consuming, it is often worth the time that we spend on it. So here's a simple framework that you can reuse every time. And like I said, you don't need to use every element of it. You can ease into what's useful for you. So by clearly stating the task, the context, the audience, the constraints, and the structure, we can reduce the confusion and, in most cases, get improved results. You can copy this and adapt it to almost any AI task for almost any AI tool. So having said that, let's try this out. So what we're going to try now is to try out using ChatGPT with some instructions. We're using ChatGPT because it is one of the more popular, 2 popular chat assistants, and arguably ChatGPT may be more popular than Gemini. So ChatGPT has 2 modes. One is the free mode, which you can simply sign in, and the other one is a subscription-based version. The free version has some limitations in the sense that you cannot really select the model that you want to use. Whereas in the subscription-based version, we can select the models that we want to use. So for example, this is a subscription-based version, and I have a variety of models that I can work with. I have access to some of the legacy models as well. And I can also use the thinking mode. And here the idea is that ChatGPT would try to think over what we're asking. And this typically leads to better results. For most cases, though, you can just use the free version and that suffices. It just depends on you what you want to go for. Now, what we want to do here is try to see how the difference in output is for a prompt which is very generic, that we can call as a bad prompt, and then slowly iterate towards a prompt which is more detailed. So let's think of an example. What we can go for is we want to plan an event for students. But right at the top, let's just write a basic thing. Plan an event for me. Of course, this is quite a bad prompt in the sense that we don't know what we want. So in this case, AI is literally asking, provide me more details. So it's like we need to provide what kind of event it is, what's the date and city, what's the rough guest count, and so on. So it is possible that the AI, once you provide it a prompt, it asks you for clarification. At other times, it may create its own plan by guessing all of these things. And obviously, when it's guessing, it could be far away from what we desire. So this prompt, plan an event for me, is vague. It is vague even for us. If someone asks us to plan an event, we'd say that it's too generic, too vague, and the instruction isn't really helpful. So we can go for a slightly more improved prompt. So it's going to be slightly better. And eventually we'll try to go for a prompt which is the best or relatively the best. So let's give it another instruction. Let's say plan a small event for students. Right? So if you look at the output, it just made an assumption. So when we say plan a small event for students, the AI assumed that a small student event would include anywhere between 20 to 40 people. So it just made an assumption. And it also made other assumptions. It made assumptions regarding the duration. It made assumptions regarding the goal. Now, this may be our goal. For example, we want to arrange an event for after exams so that students can relax, but it could be something different as well. Maybe this was a society event. This wasn't really a relaxation event. Let's say we're launching a new society, or maybe it's a sporting event. So if we do not provide clear instructions to the AI, it's going to guess between the spaces that we have, and the output may or may not be what you desire. In most cases, though, these recent AIs would still try to follow up with questions just so that they have a better idea about what you require. So this was an example of a slightly improved event where at least we mentioned that it needs to be a small event. So we are specifying the scale of event, and we are specifying the audience as well. But like you saw, the output may or may not be what we desire. Now let's think of a good prompt. So we'll try to follow the methodology that we talked about here: the task, the context, the audience, constraints, and structure. And we'll try to create a prompt based on this structure. So let's say the task. The task is to plan a small and informal event. The context can be to who the event is for. Let's say this is for students to relax and socialize after their exams. Right. So we sort of provided what the audience is, but we can also explicitly provide the audience. So audience is university students, could be school students as well. And let's just say that they are students from mixed backgrounds. So we'd have some domestic students, could be international students, could be students who are in their first year, it could be postgraduate students. So it's like a mixed background. Now, we, of course, can go ahead and in mixed backgrounds mention all of these things. So domestic students, international students, undergrads, and postgrads. The more information we provide, the better results we're likely to receive from the AI. We can go ahead and talk about some constraints as well, and we can also define them as listed bullets. So let's talk about budget. Let's say the budget is under $100. Whatever your currency is, you can go ahead and type that. Let's talk about the duration. Duration should be around, let's say, 3 hours. We want the event to be simple and low effort, and let's say easy to manage. So it's always a good idea to talk about what our constraints are. Let's say, how do we desire the output to be, the structure? So if we are pitching the event, let's say, we would like to see what the goal is. Right? I mean, if we are going to pitch the event, it's a student event, so you may want to pitch it to the student support or student advisory or the head of the school. So it's always a good idea to know what the event goal is. Based on what information we provided to the AI, we want to know a list of activities. We can go for a budget breakdown. Now, a budget breakdown is probably not the best thing that we want AI to do, because, again, it will provide a breakdown on the basis of its own understanding and perhaps a timeline. Let's try this out. So what it would do now is that on the basis of the input and instructions that I gave it, it's going to provide us the output. So the first thing we wanted was an event goal. So it says that the goal is to create a relaxed, welcoming space where students can decompress after exams, meet people from different backgrounds, and hang out without pressure or heavy structure. And then it has a list of activities. We can also we can ask AI to brainstorm some other activities as well as part of follow-up instructions. So here's a budget breakdown, the timeline, etc. Now, like I said, it's always useful to provide it follow-up instructions. So can you propose some other outdoor-based activities? So the idea is that whenever we want to get something done from the AI, it's always useful to provide structured instructions, so structured prompts, where we're talking about the task, the goal, the context, the audience, the constraints that we're working with, as well as as well as the structure of the output. And it's always useful to provide it follow-up instructions. So our first prompt would kind of guide it towards the general direction that we want things to go. AI would try to go towards that direction, but it may not be at the place that we desire it to be, and follow-up instructions would lead it there. Right, so let's go towards the final part, which is also quite important. So before using any AI output, it is important to pause and do a quick quality check, as well as a safety check. You should ask yourself whether anything important is missing, whether the answer actually makes sense, and whether a human review is needed. This step helps us prevent small mistakes from turning into bigger problems later on. So in the example that we just saw, perhaps the part about budgeting is the place where we should have another look. We should get a human involved, perhaps a committee that looks into whether it is realistic that these things can be purchased or will cost this amount of money. So it's essential for us to have quality and safety check. Another important information aspect when considering prompts is how do we handle sensitive information? And in this slide, you will see where we draw a line between what is safe to use with AI and what should never be shared. So general drafts, public documents, and brainstorming are usually just fine, and you can use AI for it. But anything that involves personal data, passwords, grades, financial information should stay out of AI tools. Think of AI like the internet. And like they say about the internet never forgets. So anything that you upload onto AI, just think of it as if you're just sharing with everyone in the world. Now, this is true for most AI, unless the AI is locally hosted on your own machine. However, that is rarely going to be the case. So, so the core responsibility when we're talking about AI use uh, lies with you, because at the end of the day, AI is your assistant. And while it assists us with our work, it does not replace our expertise or accountability. So the crux is that human beings still decide, review, and retain responsibility for the final outcome. And it is very important for us to be mindful of that. Now, to close this session, here are some common mistakes that we should be mindful of so that we can avoid uh, while prompting AI for our work. Now, some of these include writing long, unclear prompts, sharing sensitive data, or expecting perfect results on the first try, as we saw ourselves that this may not be something which always works. Now, this typically leads to problems. That is, being clear, careful, and realistic goes a long way in efficient AI use. Otherwise, we may have very vague and unuseful output from the AI. Here's an activity for you to practice what we've just covered. You can take a real task from your own work. If you're a student, your task can be that. If you're a healthcare professional, think of something that you use AI, uh, which can help you with your work, make it more efficient. So use a task from your own work, which could be anything, and rebuild it using the 5 ingredients of goal, context, audience, constraints, and structure. Now, to end this, the main message to take away is that clear thinking leads to clear prompts. Small changes in how you ask can greatly reduce the errors in the output. And iteration is a normal part of working with AI. Just don't expect it to work out of the box. Do not expect it to know a priori what you want from it. In the end, AI is meant to support your work, but responsibility and accountability always stays with the end user. And those are the main takeaways from this session. So I think now it's time for us to, if there are questions, we'll be more than happy to answer them.
Thank you, Dr. Zafi, for this insightful session. Now we will move to the Q&A segment, which will run for the next 20 minutes, and I will take the questions one by one. So there is a question from participant Asiful Bhuyan. He asks how to add Gemini to compose email directly.
So you would have to go for Gemini Workspace. That is something that we will cover uh, as we go through this course. So I would recommend that you register for it. So you'll find
Yes, I
tutorials.
registered for it. I registered for it, but whenever I found that video in Gemini, and that toolbox is not coming to my PC. I'm trying. That's why I'm asking you. And
Right.
whatever, yes.
Please go ahead.
And whatever you lecture today, I found that in that slide also. I complete this.
All right,
Yeah.
that's great and wonderful. So Google and Workspace has it basically comes with a pro version. So I wonder if you have registered for the pro version of Gemini, or if you're using the vanilla free version.
I'm using the free version. Free version is to.
All right. So it may be possible for you to register for a trial of the Pro, and some of the features would be enabled over there. So it's like there are a variety of flavors for the AI, just as I showed you with ChatGPT. There's a free version which has limited features. The subscription-based version has access to more models and more features. So it sort of works like that. But you can probably register for a trial version for a month, uh, and you can see how well that's useful for you. If it is useful for you, then maybe you can go for a subscription.
Thank you, Asif, for making this
Inshallah.
more interactive. I hope this answers your question. So next we have question from Bikinath Neva. The question is, how are prompt engineering script templates designed? Are prompt scripts universal to all language models, AIs, or is it specific to each AI through black box investigation?
So there's a general skeleton for these that we talked about, uh, which would be agnostic as far as the models are concerned. So if you talk about the task, the context, the audience, the constraints and structure, this would work across all AI models. Uh, Generally, though, as there are newer versions of AI models, the way that they are learning or they can infer from the user keeps on changing. Um, you can just think about it, right? When ChatGPT came out, the way that we prompted it was very different from the way that we do now. So it's like different generations improve. However, they are trained on human conversations, and if you follow the skeleton, the 5 ingredient skeleton, it should work across all models.
Thank you, Dr. Zafi. There is another question from the same participant, and the question is there an alternative for bullet points while prompting?
Yeah, I mean, you can go for a paragraph-based mode. You can go for a table. Uh, in fact, in some of the newer tools, like when we talk about Notebook LM, we can also ask it to generate an audio. So whatever you want, it can generate an audio with the desired output. So you don't need to read it, you can just listen to that. In some of the features, I mean, it's also possible to generate a video, for example. So as the AI tools are progressing, even let's say in a free tier, we can get these tools to generate audios and videos. This was possible for subscription-based ones, but I believe that these days, some of these features are available for the free versions as well.
Thank you, Dr. Zafi. And another question from our same participant. Thank you, Vicky. So the question is it better to stick to the same tape while iterating and improving the prompts over time? Or is it better to switch to different tabs per prompt to reduce clutter?
Uh, because this is data-driven, there's no perfect answer to this. Generally, what helps, like I said, is the ingredients. Models these days are very smart, so they would be able to figure out as long as we provide sufficient information. So the thing is, there are certain parameters in these models, like temperature parameters, which means that the way they think could vary. In one generation of ChatGPT, it may be perfect, right? The same prompt may give you perfect results, but in another seed generation of ChatGPT, for example, or any other LLM, it may not, it may give you very different results. So because there is some inherent randomness in these AI, it's always a good idea to just try different generations and see where you get the best results. If you do find a generation where you're having perfect results, it may be worth saving that particular generation. Uh, So for example, ChatGPT uh, would save these chats. So it may be useful to just save them somewhere. Uh, but like I said, because it is data driven, you may require a couple of generations, which may provide different results for the exact same prompt.
Thank you, Dr. Zafi. There is a bit clarification from his previous question that he meant that bullet point for us to input to our prompt rather than the output that we are getting from the LLMs.
Yeah. So I actually was able to read the second, like clarification as well. So the answer is the same. It is possible for us to have different results using the same prompt. So therefore, it's just a good idea for us to try out the same prompt in multiple generations. That's how it is. Unless let's say you are using the model through an API and you fix variety of parameters like temperature, etc., then it would give you closer to the same results with the same prompt. Otherwise, it may be slight variation, which is actually good for us because it's possible that one particular generation from the chat assistant generates better ideas than the other one.
We encourage participants to ask questions. This is a great opportunity to clarify doubts and learn from real world use cases. So as we come to the end of this session, I would sincerely thank Dr. Zafi Sharhan Sayed for his sharing his expertise with us. And before we close, we would like to have your feedback. If there is any comments, your feedback may help us in our upcoming sessions. We will be having our next two sessions on 15th and 22nd of February. So if there is no further questions, thank you once again, everyone, for joining today's session of ChatGPT Essentials Bootcamp. We hope that you found this session insightful and productive. Please stay connected with Adaptex Academy for upcoming sessions. Thank you, everyone.
All right. Bye, everyone. Have a wonderful rest of today.
Thank you, Dr. Zafi.